Hello everyone, Christina Roberts, a Liberty University Online graduate student of history. Today's presentation will be addressing women in the American Revolution. As a historian, this topic can often be challenging as there are not as many written documents available, and most sources are often passed down through family members through the oral tradition. Laurel Thatcher Ulrich addresses this in her article, How Betsy Ross Became Famous. In this article, she summarizes how the legend emerged through her grandson over 100 years later. She doubts the validity of this story. However, she highlights the official Betsy Ross website who validates this story. And in this regard, she says for them, the controversy remains what it was in 1870. A quibble between those who insist upon written documents and those willing to listen to living witnesses. And while the debate will never be settled of whether Betsy Ross actually made the first flag or not, Ulrich suggests that her story serves as a way to determine what it tells us about women's perceptions of their own history. And so today I want to address another revolutionary hero, Mammy Kate, through that lens. Mammy Kate was an African-American slave of Stephen Hurd, who was a patriot, militia soldier, and later governor of Georgia. Like Ross, Kate's story was an oral history written down over 100 years after the Revolutionary Era in 1894. And it would be actually Hurd's family member, his great-granddaughter, Bebel Hampton, who shared the story in what she called a family history. Hampton accounts the story of her great-grandfather being captured by the British Army and placed in a prison in Augusta. And it was here that Mammy Kate, also referred to as Aunt Kate by the great-granddaughter, would rescue Hurd the night before his execution. The legend has it that Kate, being very tall in stature, and Hurd was very short in stature, would convince the British soldiers that she needed to go into his cell to attend to some of his needs and his cares. And it would be in here that she would convince him to hide in the basket, and she carried him out on the top of her head. Now, there are many questions behind how she was able to do the 50-mile journey to Augusta, and some even question if he was even in a prison cell in Augusta. And it's for this reason that many historians doubt the validity of the rescue. However, there are things that can be confirmed that give us insight into the dynamic of the relationship between Hurd and Kate. For example, the reference of the name Mammy and Aunt Kate demonstrates a special favorable status. Also, the Hurd family recounts that Kate and her husband, Daddy Jack, were provided a home and a small tract of land on the Hurdmont estate. Some believe that this may have been a reward for her rescue, and others think that it might have just been a reward for her long years of loyal service. It was also written that she may have been a spy for Hurd, and her husband were buried next to Stephen Hurd on the family cemetery. In spite of the skepticism of historians, in 2011, the Georgia Sons of the American Revolution held a ceremony to honor Kate on the Hurdmont Cemetery. On Governor Hurd's grave marker, a portion of the description reads, "Here lies, buried in this family cemetery, with a price on his head, he was captured by the British at the Battle of Kettle Creek and condemned to die. On the eve of the execution, he was rescued by his servant, Mammy Kate, with the aid of her husband, Daddy Jack, both of whom lie buried near him." While the specific details cannot be confirmed through historical writings, the story of Kate demonstrates that women of the Revolutionary era viewed themselves as playing a vital role in the effort for American independence. And while it's Betsy Ross who represents the many seamstresses that made many flags during the Revolutionary era, it's Mammy Kate who represents the American slave who took part in contributing to the independence and liberty of our nation's founding.